Hello, everyone, and welcome to the iSeries live stream. We're here today with two members of the organization, Marc Aixalà and myself, Sarah Russo. I work on the communications team. And it's lovely to have you here. We're going to be exploring psychedelic integration and hear more about some of the topics that Marc is going to be discussing in the upcoming training that we're doing. And Marc has been working with the iSeries Support Center since its foundation 10 years ago, and over time has collected a lot of firsthand experience in the field. So we're going to talk about that and disseminate some of the information, and we'll hear more from Marc. So thanks for coming, Marc.
Yeah, it's great to see you and talk online and have this conversation. So yeah, let's go for it.
And we're going to have a dynamic conversation today. So if anybody has any questions, they're welcome to drop them in the chat, and we can answer them as they come in. So first of all, one of the main things that brings us here today is the interest in psychedelic integration. So Marc, for you personally, how did this interest start?
I can say that I really was interested in psychedelic integration at the beginning. It was more a way that things developed. I was collaborating with iSeries in 2012. And back then, my main role was to write some texts for the first website that we had and to answer emails that people were sending us. And in those emails, some people had questions regarding ayahuasca preparation, or they were asking us for tips if they were planning to travel to the Amazon, or some health questions regarding if ayahuasca was compatible with certain medication or certain diagnosis that they had. But some of those emails were also people reporting some challenging situations or adverse reactions after having had psychedelic experiences. So as I was almost finishing my degree in psychology, I started answering those emails. So early on, I started doing some sort of psychedelic integration without really understanding that's what we were doing. We were just supporting the needs of the community, answering the requests of the community. And that's the way that it unfolded. I started by answering emails at the beginning, and then maybe doing some phone calls of people that would call to the office. Then we would schedule some Skype sessions. And that's the way that the work in psychedelic integration was developing back then. We called it help center at the beginning. So we were not talking about integration per se. Then we talked about support service, but the word integration has only been added towards these more recent years, when that's the terminology that everybody was using. But we were doing this before we were calling it psychedelic integration in a way. So my interest developed as we continued working, and as different requests and different people were contacting us, sharing the problems and the challenges that they were encountering after their psychedelic experiences. So it was somehow organic and natural way in which I found myself being more and more focused on this topic.
That's really interesting, because it seems like now integration is such a popular topic, and it's something that people are gravitating towards more and more. So since in the past it wasn't a concept that people were discussing as much, what are some of the biggest shifts you've seen in this discussion about integration?
Well, on the one hand, I think that it's because in the last 10 years, we've seen an unprecedented rise in the interest in all sorts of psychedelic substances and plant medicine. And therefore, more and more people have been exposed to these types of experiences. And my perception is that maybe 15, 20 years ago, people that went to try psychedelics or ayahuasca, or they were interested in shamanism, they had some sort of prior exposure to the literature. They belong to the recreational raving psychedelic scene in a way. So they had some background information on how to prepare for these experiences, even if it was not academic, if it was not very serious. There were certain rituals that people would do. But in the last years, we've seen people that traditionally have not been interested in psychedelic substances, that they have approach them as an alternative method of healing or an alternative method to try to improve their psychological health. Therefore, this is not people that they were traditionally interested in drugs or in psychedelic substances. They were not experimenting with these substances. This is people that they are looking for solutions to their problems. Therefore, they go to these psychedelic practices without really a background of what to expect or different contexts in which these substances are used. Therefore, the impact that these experiences can have, maybe it's greater for these sort of people, which now is the majority of people that accesses psychedelic substances. Another thing is that with this expansion, a lot of practitioners have appeared in the field, a lot of providers of experiences, both in shamanic context, also in neo-shamanic context in urban areas, underground therapists, and some of them have a lot of experience and they are very well trained. Some of them not so much. There's some people that they've seen the opportunity of the market and they provide experiences without really the capacity to support people in challenging experiences or afterwards. Therefore, we've seen some accidents and some unwanted results from psychedelic experiences. And I guess that there's a growing number of people that they will need extra support after their psychedelic experiences. Not only that, but when psychedelics have also entered the mainstream and we see clinical trials and ketamine clinics or psychedelics being used in the hopes that they will heal some psychological disorder, many times we do see an improvement in the early stages after the experience, but sometimes or many times that improvement doesn't last forever. There's a progressive going back to the old symptoms. So then this question arises of what can we do after a positive psychedelic experience to somehow ground those improvements and make sure that they will have as long-lasting result as possible. Yeah. So I think that that's something that's steering the interest in psychedelic integration. If you ask me, another thing is that it's very difficult to be a legal psychedelic therapist. You have to be part of a clinical trial, or if you want to be a shamanic practitioner, that takes long years of work. Also, working on the underground, if you want to be an underground therapist, is never the safest option. So an alternative to working with psychedelics is not to administer them yourself, but to work with people that they take psychedelics in different contexts, and you're the therapist that sees the person before and after. Yeah, so I think that a new role has appeared in which a lot of therapists don't administer the substances themselves, but they do work in a therapeutic process that includes psychedelic experiences. And then the figure of the integration therapist has become something quite attractive for many therapists and health practitioners. Yeah. So yeah, so I think that we're seeing a really unprecedented interest in integration. It used to be the more kind of forgotten part of psychedelic therapy, and nowadays it has almost shifted the attention that integration is the most important part. So.
Yeah, definitely. It's wild to see how things have changed and so quickly as well. So is the booming interest in this topic part of the reason why you wanted to start this course, or what was the kind of process for creating this course?
Well, the first time that I spoke about, maybe not integration, I wasn't framing it like that, but about the work that we were doing at the support service at ICERS was in 2016. I think that was the first time that I organized a seminar about dealing with challenging experiences after psychedelic experiences. Yeah, that was a local event in Barcelona, and people were somehow interested in this topic. The room was full, and we received good feedback. What I was doing there is presenting my views on what I had observed in the 4 years that I had worked in the support service back then. Then I did the same thing in 2018 in the conference in Rio Branco that we organized. And so we organized this integration seminar that was also a success. And after these talks and other talks that I was giving about the topic, people would ask me, how can we learn more? This work is interesting. We have not heard much about difficulties after psychedelic experiences, and we would like to learn more about what you are talking about. Is there anywhere where you have written about this, or how can we learn more about that? So that led me to the idea of maybe writing something down and formalizing, giving structure to the knowledge that we were talking about. And then I wrote the book, Psychedelic Integration, that I finished writing it in 2020, and I began writing in 2018, 19, something like that. And that was like the first attempt to make the knowledge available of the work that we had done at ICERS and my understanding of psychedelic integration. And yeah, so once the book was out there, we thought of how else could we share this knowledge? How could we make this way of working in integration, which we understand that it's a little bit unique in the sense that for many years ICERS has been the only provider that we were providing integration sessions for free, and therefore we've seen thousands of people. So that's given us a privileged position to observe the sort of challenges that people go through. So yeah, then we thought that a course sharing this way of working would be a good idea to expand and make available the knowledge and to give a more practical dimension to the book. The book is practical as well. I explain how I conduct integration sessions and different protocols, but in this training we wanted to go even one step deeper, no? So to explain in detail certain things that we do during the sessions, how to ask people to do certain tasks, and how integration session looks like in the real situation. Yeah, so that's why we joined efforts with David Londoño, which is a colleague that works at the ICER Support Center. He's a very experienced therapist and has a vast experience in shamanic practices. So he joined in, and he will be presenting some seminars during this training that are specific about plant medicine and aspects of the ayahuasca experience that he's really, really knowledgeable of. So yeah, our intention was to make the knowledge available and to put it in the open, to make it accessible. So as with everything that we do at ICERS, we want to raise the safest practices. We want to make sure that these tools are used in a wise way, in a safe way, and that they end up being something beneficial for not just for individuals, but also for societies and for the collective well-being. So in a way, that's what drives us to share the knowledge.
That's great. And through all the work you've done with your book, you've worked on many different areas and facets of this topic, and I got the chance to read it, and it was really wonderful to see how much research and time and dedication had gone into it. And work with you and David is very dynamic. So I imagine that there's many different people that are interested in this course. So how might this course be relevant to those working in adjacent fields such as transpersonal psychology, trauma therapy, somatic work, or things like that?
That's a good question, because there's many ways of understanding psychedelic therapy, plant medicine, shamanism, and also integration work. Yeah, there's many ways to understand these practices. And I never claimed to have the best approach or the only one or the final truth about integration. I think that the model that we developed is quite peculiar in the sense that our service has always been a free service. The users, the clients, if you want, have never had to pay for this service. Yeah, that's something that we wanted to make available for the community. But that came with some limitations. Of course, if we don't receive an income from that regard, we need to get the income to support that service from somewhere else. And that shaped our intervention, in which we could not do a regular course of psychotherapy. We needed to focus on specific interventions that would provide some relief or some sense of being useful and some sense of help in short amount of time. Yeah, so that's maybe one of the peculiarities of the model of integration that I present, which I differentiate between psychotherapy and integration. I think that they are two different things. So what we present in this course, what people will learn is a really practical approach to integration, and especially to integration of difficult experiences. Sometimes people that come after a difficult psychedelic experience have a sense of urgency. They need to recover balance as soon as possible. They need to go back to their lives. They need to feel that they have some sense of control of what's going on. And the intention of the model that I developed is exactly that. In a few number of sessions, in a process that it's not a long-term psychotherapy, to provide tools and develop a process that will be effective in helping the person recover balance and be able to continue their own journey on their own. So that's probably what people will find different from this approach to other approaches. And yeah, I think that people that come from different backgrounds, from more trauma-informed therapists or transpersonal therapists, they, on the one hand, they might be shocked initially about some of the principles of the work that we propose. There might be some core issues there that are somehow challenged by a short-term intervention. But I think that they will also learn tools and techniques that they can apply to their own way of working, and to somehow help health providers to think about what they do. I say that repeatedly during the course. I don't want to teach people to do integration. I want to teach people to think about integration. Yeah, it's not that you have to do things in the way that I tell you. It's more that let's find a way to think about what we're doing. So that's going to be in the best interest of the client or the person that we're trying to support. So yeah, I think that people will find value in that, a very practical approach and many different tools and ways of working during the sessions that sometimes in other courses that are more theoretical are not so much explained, or we don't go so much in detail about those things.
Great. So then in that case, because many different types of people have interest in integration, is the course designed for everyone? Is it designed for certain professionals?
So the course doesn't require that you know anything beforehand. Of course, people that have a therapeutic background and they are therapists and they have experience in working with people, they will have certain skills of how to build rapport, how to interact during sessions, how to use language, or how to structure a session. Certain things people with a psychological background will have more experience, and therefore maybe it's going to be easier for them to apply what they will learn in the course. But the course does our training does not suppose that you come with certain knowledge. We present a model from scratch, and I will provide all the secrets and all the tools. So it's not like a hidden mystery there that people are going to have to look for somewhere else. No, it's I think that people from a general public, people that do not work with integration professionally, will find interest, particularly in the understanding of integration and some tools that can be used to maximize benefit after positive experiences. There's also some tips and some ideas for people that provide experiences, people that maybe organize retreats or that they run one-on-one sessions or group sessions. I also provide some ideas on how to maximize the capacity of integration in this kind of settings. So I think that they can find interest in that. And then people that work in integration with challenging experiences, they will find loads of information on how to approach certain specific situations, and how to deal with certain symptoms. What happens if there's anxiety? What happens if there's intrusive thoughts? What happens when people are feeling that they have a depersonalization or derealization? What happens with these recovered memories of traumatic events that I was not aware of? What happens with possession states and entity attacks? So how to work with that in a practical approach from the therapist couch, not making big theories, but actually how can we try to support these kind of scenarios?
Yeah, those are some very interesting topics. And I think that there's a lot of different types of discussions happening now around integration. So are there any sort of emerging trends that you're aware of that potential students who are going to take the course should be aware of?
That's a very good question. On the one hand, as with psychedelic therapy and shamanic retreats, it's becoming mainstream. Therefore, it starts to enter the market, and then we have to follow and obey the rules of the market. So you have to differentiate yourself from the other course, and you have to present some sort of product that will be different from what other people are doing. So one of the things that I see happening is that we tend to become more and more specific. So using MDMA for PTSD with people that have certain kind of scores in the CAPS questionnaire, and they have certain profile. Yeah, psilocybin for depression, psilocybin for anorexia. So it's almost like we go to very specific labels, and then we work with those very specific labels. Some integration trends, I think that they also go in this model, no? Like trying to define a very specific model that I have conceptualized this, and this is the model how integration should be done. My intention when talking about integration and about integration practice and therapy is to almost to create, not to create, but to describe a meta model in which you don't have to abandon any of the models that you are trained in and adopt the model that we're presenting. It's more, if you want, a philosophical approach to integration, how we should think about integration. What's the ontology? What's the way of framing the knowledge that we bring into the practice of integration? Therefore, I think that it's a very wide paradigm, the one that I present, that people coming from, I don't know, a transpersonal perspective, they can feel that they can use this model that we're presenting from their point of view, or people coming from a psychoanalytical approach, they could also use the tool from there. So it does not require that you abandon your previous training and you're going to have to adhere to this now. No, it presents more like some sort of higher umbrella that can include all these different paradigms.
Yeah, so I know that self-care and supervision is addressed in the course, and how is that reflected? How do you work with those topics?
This is a good question. More and more, my work also has to do with giving supervision to practicing therapists, and I receive a lot of therapists that have had some sort of challenging situations in their practice. Yeah, and these challenges can be from, I don't know, problems that they had with clients, problems that they had with the setting that they work in, problems that they had with colleagues, or how to really build psychedelic practice that it's coherent and around the values that they want to. So, or some pitfalls that they've encountered in some situations. So self-care is definitely something that it's important. In this training itself, it's not that we are going to put a lot of focus into self-care. What we are going to put a lot of focus is in self-observation. Like you as a therapist, in integration, you are a tool, you are a resource for the integration process. So it's not just about the theoretical paradigm that you're using, or the tools or the techniques that you're using. It's also how you are using them, how you're using your voice, how you're using your language. So to put a lot of focus in the way that we do practice integration, also in the triggers that we can get from the work as an integration therapist, and the motivations that we can have underlying that. No, and there's definitely a certain trend in the psychedelic field, as always has been. This is nothing new, of power, no? Being someone that provides psychedelic experiences, being the shaman, being the facilitator, is something that puts you in a it's not a peer-to-peer relationship, it's a hierarchical relationship. So some of the challenges for facilitators, for therapists, is how to manage this asymmetrical relationship that we have with clients. And in the integration practice, something like that can happen as well. I think that integration practitioners have become the new shamans in a way. You know, it's somehow a trendy job to have, to be an integration therapist, an integration coach. And there's also certain challenges that we can go through because of that specific role. And that's something that I like to address, and I like to always bring the subject of accountability and the responsibility that we have as professionals when working with someone. Yeah, we are tools that we should be working in favor of the healing process of the person, but we can have all sorts of unexpected effects. No, so yeah, that's something that I also go into in the classes.
Great. Well, I just want to extend a reminder to anyone who's watching right now. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to address them. And big thanks to Kiko, who's working as the magician behind the curtain today, helping us with the live stream. And okay, so a psychedelic experience, the aftermath of that can be really different for different people, and maybe the same person can have worked with a plant medicine and come out feeling great. The next time they work with that same medicine, they can come out of it and feel sad and having a hard time kind of integrating the experience. So how are the individual differences in psychedelic experiences addressed in the course?
Yeah, that's a really important aspect of, I believe, of psychedelic integration. We need to understand how diverse the psychedelic field is. We have people that come from purely academic backgrounds, psychiatrists that they work in medical institutions and universities. They have a 100% Western paradigm, and we have people that we have indigenous traditions that they work with mind-altering substances in a completely different paradigm. And the users, people that take psychedelics, they use them in these sorts of environments. No? Some people go to the jungle to do dietas, and they are dieting the spirit of the plant. And some people go to clinical trials and they take 25 milligrams of synthetically synthesized psilocybin. So how can we create a paradigm that will be able to include all this and to be flexible enough to work with people that come from different backgrounds? Because if we stick too tightly to one paradigm, then we are reducing the amount of people that we can work with. If you are a shamanic practitioner and you understand all psychedelic experiences from the shamanic perspective, whatever tradition you belong to, maybe you cannot work with people that have had a psychedelic experience in a clinical trial. It's going to be like two different universes, and to really create a good cooperation there, it's not going to be possible. So this was one of the main challenges at the support service at ISOS. We had people coming from really, really different backgrounds, and you never know the kind of person that is coming and what beliefs, what kind of worldview they have. But we need to be able to adapt to that. That's why I was telling before that the model that I developed is more a meta model. It's based on philosophical constructivism, and so that's like going one layer up. It's like, all right, there's not a single reality. There are many realities, and people coming to work with us will have plenty of different realities. How does the therapist adapt to the reality of the client, of the person that they are working with? And I think that this is for me, it was a really game changer when I learned more about philosophical constructivism and I started to approach integration in this way. Yeah.
And so over time, would you care to share a bit about some of the main shifts that the support center has experienced, and maybe discuss the bilingual aspect? So the support center provides services to people in English and in Spanish. So can you talk about how that evolved and any other big changes that have come?
Yeah, the work at the support service has been really, really cool. I mean, it's been something that I've been doing for 10 years now, somehow, or a little bit more. I've been in relationship with the integration and support service. And the kind of requests that we received throughout the years, they have evolved and changed. Yeah. So at the 10 years ago, a lot of questions were about interactions, or especially where to go to drink ayahuasca, what were good criteria to find a shaman or a center. In the later stages, these things have changed. It seems that the general public has become more and more educated about this, and also there's more information and more resources on the internet, so people can make their decisions. They can find information in other places. No? So throughout the years, what we've seen is that the cases that we were getting were somehow more serious, people that were more disturbed by the psychedelic experience that they had had. So throughout the years, we've become more and more specialized in dealing with challenging experiences and adverse reactions. I always joke that my experience as a psychologist or a psychedelic therapist is very biased, because I've mostly worked with people that have had negative experiences. Yeah, so I've been exposed to this reality. Usually, you don't go to a therapist to ask for psychedelic integration if your psychedelic experience has been really good and you are enjoying the after effects or whatever. No, but you look for a professional when things have not gone as you expected. So my experience in that regard has been, I would say, somehow very humbling, because there's been people from many different backgrounds with huge experiences. I mean, it's not people that they were naive in the use of psychedelics or plant medicine, people that they were struggling and struggling severely after a difficult experience. It's also shown me throughout the years of some of the dark aspects of the psychedelic community. People that suffered integration problems, not because of their own psychological experience, but because of the interactions that happened around the experience. So at the support service, we've received way too many reports of malpractice, abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, practices that are not ethical at all, and the terrible impacts that this has. No, and usually this is something that people do not talk so much about. First of all, because of the shame that this involves. No, when someone has been abused, you don't want to openly disclose that. But also in psychedelic circles, especially if they are organized around a charismatic personality like a shaman or a therapist that has followers or whatever, there seems to be the community silences that person. No? So then people do not talk about that. People do not report these cases. And for many years, I think that we were pretending that this was not happening. Now we know that this happens, and that this should be taken into account. No, so working at the support service has been also been very much immersed in the dark side of the psychedelic work and the plant medicine work, and that's maybe one of the worst parts of my job. No, when I'm told of these kind of situations, and really makes you be surprised of how can this even be possible. No, so that's been a very shocking part of my work.
And then it's great that this service is available to people, because like as you said, there's too many of these instances happening, and a lot of times people don't know where to go. They don't know who to turn to, and if they say anything, sometimes they don't have the support they need. So it's great that there's more dialogue about this happening in order to mitigate harm. And so when the support center started, initially it was conducted in Spanish, I'm assuming, and then later opened up to English speakers. How did that happen?
It's always been bilingual, because I spoke good enough English, and so I was answering those emails in English and Spanish. So for many years, it was just me attending those emails and integration sessions. And as years progressed, we tried to find people that would collaborate with us, and we could expand the integration and support service. People that had experience with plant medicine, people that could speak languages, people that were trained in psychology and psychotherapy. And I have to say, it's not an easy task. Yeah, so that's something that we're still working on, trying to see how can we expand such service. We understand that the ISO service is quite unique in the sense that people don't pay for that, and I cannot stress that enough. No, it's a service to the community, and we have plans of expanding this to having more people working with us and being able to attend in more languages. Also, there's the cultural aspect that languages imply. No? So questions in Spanish, they mostly come from people in Spain or people in South America. Questions in English, of course, they came from all over, mostly from countries in the first world countries. Yeah, that in the first years, that was very interesting for me to see that the requests in Spanish that came from Spain had mostly to do with preparation for ayahuasca, where to go to drink ayahuasca, maybe integration problems, or things related to health and the psychedelic experience, while questions coming from Latin America had a lot to do with treating addiction with iboga, treating addiction with ayahuasca. So somehow there was a different reality back then. I don't know now exactly how that would be, but it seemed that the main concern for people in South America that were considering iboga, for example, was to treat addiction. While in first world countries, we have maybe more freedom to say, okay, I want to heal, or I want to improve, or I want to do a spiritual journey. So sometimes the requests were not so based on addiction or health problems. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so have you noticed a difference in different cultures in the way they approach therapy? Because I know certain cultures, they say growing up, therapy was for people that were sick and it was very stigmatized, and other cultures seem to have that context a bit more integrated in the public. So have you noticed a difference in that with the people that come to the help center?
That's a good question. And I'm not so sure that I would put it that way, that it depends on the culture, but I think that it's been a shift in the overall culture. So I would say that some years ago, people would only come to the integration service when they would be really struggling. So there was the idea that you take a psychedelic substance and then you should be able to do integration on your own. And then, yeah, if you were just experiencing minor problems afterwards, you would deal them on your own. And people that would come to the support service were because they were very much in need. Through the years, I think that now there's this understood idea that everybody could benefit from integration sessions. And although at the support service, we receive mostly people that are struggling severely, I think that the general field of integration is also full of people that have had positive experiences and they go to do the integration with a professional, which our model is not so much based on that. Our model at the support service in the end is some sort of harm reduction or risk reduction approach that it assumes that it's upon the request of the client, of the request of the user. So if there's no perception of need for integration, my opinion is that there's no need for integration. So my model is very much based on that there needs to be a need from the person. They should feel that they need something that can be obtained through talking with a professional. Otherwise, forcing integration onto someone, I'm not that kind of integration therapist.
So for the people that come seeking services after having a challenging experience, what would you say are some of the most common errors that cause people to have a challenging experience?
Yeah, that's one of the chapters of the book, and also in the training we talk about what I call different profiles in integration, which is particularly that the different situations that mostly lead people to experience challenges in the integration phase. Yeah, so I've described seven different scenarios. One is the lack of preparation, people that have not been enough prepared for the experience. Also people that have had difficult experiences that have not resolved, something got stuck during the experience. People that have had very traumatic experiences during the psychedelic experience, like something that almost seemed like a psychotic break. Also, what I mentioned before, the problems with shamans and facilitators, the emergence of traumatic memories, people that had some sort of psychological disorder before taking psychedelics and it became like exacerbated or increased after the psychedelic experience. And lately I've been adding this new category of possession states and entity attacks, that it's somehow common in the ayahuasca and the more shamanic approaches, and it's a source of suffering for people that go through these experiences. So what I've done is to try to describe the different profiles that people different sort of profiles that present challenges in integration, and describe an intervention protocol, an intervention strategy for each of these approaches. So
and then can you describe what entity attacks are for those that may not be familiar with the term?
Well, that would be opening a big chapter. But in some indigenous traditions, it's understood that there are spirits, that there are entities, and there are energies, that they are not physical, they belong to spiritual realms. Some of them have good intentions, some of them don't have good intentions. And during psychedelic experiences, particularly during ayahuasca experiences, certain fields, certain worlds can open, so these entities can attack you, or they can become attached to your energetic field, and that can have a negative impact on your experience, but also on your health afterwards. And this is becoming more and more a source of diagnose certain problems. Some people go to drink ayahuasca in the jungle, they have certain experience, and then from that perspective, from that culture, they are told that there's certain entity, certain energy that has become attached, and they need to do certain practices to be freed from that entity. That presents a very difficult challenge to overcome in ontological terms, no? And how can we work with that in a Western approach? No, how can we work with integration of possession states and entity attacks in the context of an office? Yeah, so that's something that I also talk about in the course. That's gonna be this. This is a spoiler of what you can find that is not present in the book, for example. So,
yeah, and it's interesting that just as when you started talking about that, the cat popped in.
Yes, cats are great for cleaning energy. So I have my protection.
Yes.
Despite cleaning energy is letting go a lot of fur. So
yeah. So we have a comment in the chat. Someone was bringing up that they live in Bangkok and that no doctors or psychologists here know anything about psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. And then it mentioned that suicide and addiction are increasing here in Thailand and current methods are not working. How can the economically disadvantaged be reached?
Yeah, that's an extremely important question that we need to ask ourselves in the psychedelic field. How to make these therapies available and accessible for people? I don't know how we will do that, because everything that is involved in making a psychedelic session happen in a Western context, it's extremely expensive. So I don't know how that is going to happen. Also, it's becoming a very profitable business. So then the business is, I don't know, it's based on charging certain amount of money to people that do have that amount of money. But what about those people that don't have the money to do this kind of retreats and practices? No, I don't know. I hope that there will be a way that these practices, these healing methods are introduced in the public health systems. But it also brings the topic that economical struggles and financial struggles and socioeconomic problems are sorts of mental health problems. So I don't want to fall into this trap of thinking that with psychedelic experiences we can heal the suffering of poor people. No, maybe what we need to do is prevent people from being extremely poor and facing those struggles. So I think that there's a if you want, a sociological or political fight there as well. No, if we would have more equality, there would be less mental health problems. We see that in many countries in which people that suffer from mental health problems usually also suffer from socio-financial problems. So how can we do that? I don't know. That goes beyond my capacity, and this also goes beyond the course. Yeah, so I have to also accept the limitations that this training has. It is not a training that is focused on a global scale. It's more a psychological approach. Yeah, so it's based on how, in the interaction of two people or one professional with a group of people, how can we support the best we can people that we have in that circle or in that course. So
yeah, and thanks for asking that question. And I think that it's it's an important topic that's not often discussed, that economics are a big part of mental health challenges for people. So I hopefully in the future we'll continue to be able to find ways to support people when they may not have access. We have a very international audience today. Someone was writing from Berlin. They wonder, how effective is working online in integration? Do you see a difference in your practice when meeting the clients in person?
That's a good question. And when I started working in integration, mostly was online, because people contacting us, some of them were in Barcelona, where I lived at the moment, but many people were in different countries all around the world. So it had to be online, want it or not. I think that the model that I developed, it can be effectively deployed online. I've worked with thousands of people and I've seen success in many cases. Of course, the online approach has some limitations, and I have to say that it's more difficult for the therapist. You as a therapist, is more difficult to be really engaged and focus on what's going on. You lack sometimes information, in the sense that you don't have so much non-verbal communication awareness. No, you usually see from the chest up, so there's no way of knowing what is happening in the general sort of movement of the person. So it's a little bit more difficult to work online. Yeah. The method that I've developed, which is not that I've created from scratch, I've taken things from different schools and put them together. Yeah, but it can be deployed online without too much problems. Yeah. I see some question there that is just talking, or do I also focus on the body? No, it's just a talking therapy practice, or it goes to different levels. I like to define integration in dimensions, no? And the physical dimension of integration is extremely important. You will see both in the book and in the training course that the tasks and the exercises that usually I ask people to do to facilitate integration are not just verbal. Many of them include doing things and so taking action, so it's not just that by talking the healing will happen. The model that you will learn is not so much that the change and the healing and the solutions need to happen during the integration session, but it's throughout understanding the situation and the interaction, and then giving some exercises, some tools that people can do on their own afterwards. That's where integration happens. Integration, in the end, it happens through experience, and the type of therapy, the type of integration that I work with is highly experiential. It's not that we're going to start doing psychedelic sessions online. It's experiential in a different way. Yeah. So how we can do things in our daily life in between sessions to some sort have an experience that will help us resolve that integration conflict that we're having. Yeah. So it's in a sense is an experiential sort of approach, but the experience happens. The client, they have them by themselves, yeah, through different exercises, the different tasks, and different questions that are asked during the integration session. So, yeah.
And focusing on the course, the ICEER's course, what makes it unique compared to some of the other integration trainings that are out there?
I think that, yeah, what we mentioned, no, the focus on challenging experiences, which is something that sometimes is not so much talked about. Also, I think that the inclusive philosophical paradigm, I think that I have not found so much this in other places. No, that I think it's a model that can enrich all models. Yeah, it's inclusive in a way. And also the practical approach. Many times in psychedelic trainings, and there's a lot of theory, a lot of talking about how things should look like. What I've tried to do in this model is to really somehow show and teach and explain what happens. For example, what happens during the first integration session. How do I run the first integration session? What kind of questions do I ask? What kind of information to gather? What kind of exercises do I usually ask at the first session? How do they follow up during the session? So the idea is that people will have a very clear idea of how a process is. They will understand, okay, so there's going to be 6 sessions and you have done this, and that. So you can really understand the practicalities of it. It's almost like you will be given the details of what happens during the sessions, So I think that makes it quite unique.
Great. So when can people sign up? When does this course start? And when does the application process end?
So the course will start in September, if I'm not mistaken. It's the first lessons will be available on the 5th of September. Then we have the first live meeting on the 13th. So the course is a combination of recorded lessons. So you'll have videos every week that you can go through. And then every week we will have a class or a meeting of 1 hour and a half in which we can debate, discuss, ask questions, and deepen what we've learned in the theoretical sessions. Yeah. There's going to be like 12 of these encounters. So the course is 12 weeks. And we're starting in September. We're finishing in December. As for the applications, I think that they will be open Definitely this week we're probably I'm not so good with dates, sorry with that, but I think that towards the 10th or 13th of July, applications are going to finish. So there's still a week or 10 days.
Great. So for anyone that's interested in the course, we're going to leave a link for more information. You can learn about everything that the course will entail. There's frequently asked questions, and then there's the application process. So you can have access to that. And is there plans to create this course again in the future if people maybe can't make this upcoming session? The upcoming session is available in English, but is there plans for a Spanish language session?
Yeah, our idea is that we're launching first the English version. Next year, we're gonna record and prepare the Spanish version. So probably maybe September next year, there's gonna be the Spanish version. And we hope, depending on how things go, to repeat the English version. Yeah. So yeah, probably next year you will also be able to join this training. We're also planning, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but I like to share the things that we're thinking about, even if they have not happened yet, that this will not be the last training that we do, that this will be like a first somehow level that will have a continuation for people that have gone through the course and want to deepen and have like more real practice sort of experience. We are also working on that direction to provide further learning opportunities for people that like our model and they want to learn more. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a continuity.
It's very exciting to hear. And to kind of bring it back to a more broader question as we're wrapping up, and again, thanks to everyone for coming, and feel free to drop any questions in the chat. How can people integrate well? What are some tips that you might have for someone who would be going into an experience, and just to kind of help them consolidate it, or afterwards ways that they can integrate on their own?
I think that the best integration is a good preparation. I think that the better you prepare, the better you set your intention, the focus that you put on the experience and everything that builds up to that day, choosing the day, choosing the place, choosing the people, choosing, like making wise choices beforehand, and then having some free time afterwards. That is usually enough for most people to feel that they can do their own integration if the session goes reasonably well. Yeah. Of course, that there's plenty of tools that one can self administer, no? And I talk a lot about that in the training as well, no? Like drawing, journaling, all sorts of artistic expression, and many different tools that you don't need a professional to do them. You just need some time and some discipline. Yeah, sometimes after the experience, it's like, all right, everything is done, we don't need to do anything else. No, but I think that if we allocate on the next day of the experience, I don't know, 2-3 hours to reflect about that, to write about the experience, to maybe draw something that will remind you of the experience, like really basic stuff. If we allocate some time, that is usually enough to get the integration process going. I think it's important, maybe there's this is going against the promotion of integration learning, but integration doesn't need to be very sophisticated. I mean, in the end, it's just having some time, some focus, some attention, of taking care of the experience. We've had a precious experience, something that is not happening every day. So how do we take care of that? In the end, integration is taking care of what has happened on the day of the experience, and then we can find our own ways of doing that. So
Great. Well, thanks for this interesting conversation and for sharing your expertise. And we have the integration course information on the iSeries website. We also talked about the help center. We offer that service to people free of charge. So if you or anyone you know is having a challenging experience after working with psychedelics, we invite you to connect. And then we have various resources on our website for people. We also have the Interact service, so people can ask questions about I'm taking this medication. Is it contraindicated with ayahuasca or any other psychedelic medicines? So we invite you to cruise around the ICEER's site, check out Marc's book as well, and give that a read if you haven't. It's available in English and in Spanish. And thanks for everyone for joining us, and thanks to Kiko for helping out with the live stream technical scenario. And we'll stay tuned in the future for another live stream and look forward to hearing more from what Marc's going to be up to.
Thank you so much.
Great. Take care, everyone.